Have you told yourself that you have to be some sort of really big name person in order for big name people to be interested in you or want to talk to you? Have you told yourself that until you get some sort of massive following, you're just going to be insignificant and nobody's going to care? Well, there's two things I want to share with you about that. Number one, that's a terrible story that you are perpetuating in your life, and it's not true. And number two, I want to share with you my own experience and my own story living and thinking that way, and how doing one simple little thing totally changed the game for me. Hey, my name is D. Grant Smith, and I help people transform their stories, the stories of their personal life and the stories of their business life, to live a more fulfilled, happy, joyful, and loving life and experience amazing transformational relationships. So here's my story. About 7 years ago, I was having a conversation with my coach, and he decided to give me a challenge. Now, at the time, I was working in the indie music world. I was helping musicians build relationships with their fan base, with the music industry, and with influencers and media people so they could grow their brand and grow their music career. And I had built a lot of really cool connections with a lot of really cool musicians, and I made some connections with people inside the industry. But my coach really wanted to challenge me because, being a relationship person, he's like, why are you not reaching out to bigger people? And I wasn't reaching out to bigger people because I was telling myself that story. Oh, I'm not big enough yet for the big people to care. So here's what my coach said. He said, I want you to reach out to somebody that you think is so far outside of your ability or your range to be able to have a conversation. Just reach out and see if they will respond. And so I thought about that for a little bit. And there was one person in particular that I wanted to reach out to anyways. And that person was Seth Godin. Now, I've been reading Seth's books for a long time. I've been subscribed to his email for a long time. And if you are like me and you've been a subscriber of Seth Godin's email, you know that he emails you at like 4 o'clock in the morning. And you also know that he doesn't give long expositions about anything. And he doesn't really give advice in the same ways that a lot of people that are really successful give advice. What Seth does is he provides a perspective, a different way to look at things. And then he just challenges you to take one step in that direction. And I've been reflecting on that different approach to emailing because Seth rarely ever tries to sell anything in his emails, which I really appreciate. He's just showing up as a guide. And I started thinking about that metaphorically. And so I had wanted to contact him just to say thank you. And ultimately, that's what I did. So I ended up getting Seth Godin, marketing maven, to not only reply to my email, but be willing to come onto my podcast, which wasn't geared towards business people or marketing necessarily. The podcast I hosted at the time was called the DIY Artist Route, and it was all about helping musicians and creative entrepreneurs navigate the course through this whole journey of growth and connection and building upon building new opportunities for success. So here's what I did. I found a way to contact Seth Godin. And by the way, it wasn't hard at the time. I don't know if he's changed his method since. It has been a couple of years. But he put his email address on his website. But he also said that he didn't do personal appearances. He didn't do private coaching. And he didn't do one other thing that I wasn't necessarily all that interested in. But I could see how that was a way for him to avoid being contacted by people just soliciting things to him, which is good advice. But here's what I did. I told a story inside my email to Seth, but I really had one objective. My one objective was just to show appreciation. I just wanted to say thank you for doing what you do. You've made an impact in my life, and it's significant. Now, I didn't kiss his ass and blow a whole bunch of smoke and do a whole bunch of big, like, oh, you changed my life forever stuff, which all of that was true. But I didn't want to just like do the same old sort of, hey, thank you for doing all this stuff. I read your book and now my life has changed. All of that stuff was true, but that's usually the way that people talk about or try to say thank you. I like doing things differently. And I imagine if you're watching this video, you probably like to do things differently too. You are cut from a different cloth. So here's what I did. I said, thank you for being like Moses in the perpetual and pervasive entrepreneurial desert, because that's the way that it felt to me. Is that the way that it feels for you? If you're in business, is that the way business feels, like this endless desert? And there's all these different herds of people moving through, and some sort of guru telling you, follow me, I know the way, do what I do, and you'll be successful. And maybe you bought into that, but maybe you see that what they're actually advertising or saying to do is the exact same thing that all the other herds are telling you to do. And it's not all that simple, and you don't get any support. Well, I wasn't necessarily getting personal one-on-one support with Seth, but what I was feeling in all of his messages, and what I feel when I read his books, is here is somebody who is guiding me one step at a time along the process. Instead of making these big, gigantic claims about doing these two things one time and having overnight success. And so what I felt was that in walking through this perpetual desert of being in the entrepreneurial space, being in the creative space, and all of it seeming to be a combination of I either follow this herd or I find my own path, he felt like Moses in the desert. Now, if you've read scripture, you know that the Israelites escaped the bondage of being slaves in Egypt and then spent 40 years in the desert following Moses. Now, maybe this trek that they were going on to get to the promised land could have actually taken 2 weeks, and they ended up spending 40 years. There's all kinds of metaphysical stuff inside that whole journey too, but just from reading that and all the different times that I had, Seth Godin felt like Moses to me. And so that was the story that I said inside my message to him. I painted a picture of how he had changed my life, of how he was impacting me. And in using that story reference and just saying thank you, it created a connection with him. It was an unusual message that he wasn't used to receiving. Now, when I was finishing writing this message, when I put it all together, I had a thought. What if I use this as an opportunity to invite him to be a part of my podcast? His website didn't say anything about how he didn't do podcast episodes. So why not take a shot and go for it? So that's what I did. And that's what I said in the email. I said, hey, Seth, your website says all the things that you don't do, but it didn't say anything about not doing podcast episodes. And I'll admit, my podcast isn't huge, but your message and what it is that you share is incredibly valuable to the people that listen to me. And if you'd ever consider being a guest on my podcast, I'd love to have you on. Either way, thank you so much for what you do. And then I signed off. Now, I was sitting in a coffee shop when I put this email together. I was about to go play poker with a group of buddies. That's what we did every Tuesday night. And so I hit send. And then I messaged my coach to say, okay, I took your challenge and I did what you asked me to do. He's probably not going to say anything, but at least I did what you asked me to do. I'll talk with you tomorrow. Now, in the time that it took me to put this extra email together and send off to my coach was roughly maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Right before I was closing up my computer and going over to my buddy's house, I noticed that a new email had come in 2 or 3 minutes. And it said it was from Seth Godin. And I thought, really? I figured it was an autoresponder, because how many big people you contact them and they send you an autoresponder of thank you so much for reaching out. I'm not available for personal connections, but please keep following my stuff. That's typically the road, isn't it? Well, that's not what I received. What I received was a personal reply from Seth Godin. And he said, D. Grant, I'm touched by your words. Thank you for your kindness. This really impacted me. And no, I normally don't do podcasts, but you have me intrigued. What are you doing on Tuesday? Well, now I'm clearing my whole schedule for whatever time it is that you're available to talk to me. And so that's how I got a conversation with Seth Godin. And also, that conversation with Seth Godin is what produced everything that I've been talking about for the past 7 years that I call growth farming, which is about cultivating our inner garden within, the garden of the heart, the garden of the mind, to transform our lives. And now I help people do that, not only in their business, but in their personal and spiritual journey. by growing in confidence and growing in what real love is. And I help people build stronger relationships with themselves, with other people, and in their connection with God. And all of this has been a journey in learning how to grow and now sharing and teaching the things that I learned. But the framework for where that came from this amazing conversation that I got to have with one of my biggest heroes. And what did I do? I expressed appreciation. I expressed gratitude, and I told a story. You can do that too. Whether or not you want to reach out to somebody that's really, really big, that's been one of your heroes, or you want to communicate your story in a way that builds such a strong connection with people that they can't say no to you, reach out to me. I can help you make that happen. I can help you unlock the magic of your story and your message to be able to grow your business and grow your outreach. And if you want to go even more beyond just growing your business and grow in your personal journey, growing in your relationships and transforming your life, I can help you with that too. I'll provide ways for you to set up a simple conversation with me. No sales pitch involved in this. This is really about me talking with you, learning about your story, and seeing how I can be of service to you. Click the link below and let's have a time to talk. Regardless of that, I appreciate you being here. My encouragement to you today, my friend, is to believe in yourself. Believe in the power of your story and know that you are making a big difference, regardless of how big your audience is. I appreciate you. I love you, and I'll see you soon.